You're listening to a podcast on the Audio Boom Network. This is A Mindful Life with me, Dave Thomas. Thank you for downloading this edition of the programme. I do hope you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Steve Bradshaw, 27 years experience in the police, rising to police inspector as a force incident manager. Currently going by the name of Noah Burd, actor, stage and minor TV roles.
Well, Steve, it's really great to see you today. Thank you for coming along. As with all my guests, I suppose, probably just give me a quick summary of your upbringing, really.
I'm the youngest of four boys, with the next brother up being 5 years difference between me and him. My poor mother had 3 children under the age of 2. We grew up mainly around the Leyland, South Ribble, Farrington sort of area, so proper Lancashire working class upbringing, really. The one thing that stands out to me, and I think unconsciously leads you through the early parts of your working life, really, seeing your parents both working hard, working long hours, and getting up at the crack of dawn and setting off. My dad on his bicycle, and my mum walking to work. And I think it's experiences like that which focus a young adult's mind, and you kind of formulate what you want to do with your life.
As a majority of them, I guess, appear to be police officers on this podcast at the moment. You're no different. What led you to joining the police?
Whilst at British Nuclear Fuels, and it took me 7 years to get my electronics degree, and I got a job on the main site at British Nuclear Fuels. And don't get me wrong, it's a trade. It was a great job. It was, as far as jobs go, it was pretty secure. I was looking around and I was thinking, is this it? Maybe there's pivotal points in my career. I don't know if other people feel this, that there's points at which you get itchy feet. And I thought to myself, is this me now until I'm 65? I was always interested in the police, and I quite fancy having a look at the Special Constabulary. I applied to join the Special Constables, and I got on at Leyland around 1995. I spent a couple of years in the Specials, and I thought to myself, right, it's a big step to resign from a secure job at British Nuclear Fuels as electronics engineer. I applied to the job, and you end up going through a lot of stations and aptitude tests, and watch this video and write a quick statement on what you've seen, that type of thing. And I ended up at a final interview, and it was with Wendy Walker, who was the Chief Inspector at the time. I remember what she said to me that day with lots of clarity. So I had a lousy final interview. I don't know who walked into that interview, but it wasn't me. It probably in body, but not in mind. So I could see Wendy Walker looking at me, and it was, if you just wait outside, we'll tell you in 5 minutes. And she came out and she goes, how do you think that went? I said, that's the worst 20 minutes I've ever had. So she sat down with me and she just talked to me. And she just talked to me and she was like, well, tell us about what's happened, tell us about a couple of jobs in the Specials and stuff like that. And it was more of a chat, and it was me, and I chatted with her and stuff like that.
It was a second interview, wasn't it?
And she got up and went, yeah, that's what I want. And then she stopped, she turned to me and goes, do not make me regret that decision. That's basically my getting into the police. So I joined in 1997. I did the initial training at Preston. And again, pivotal people in your career, especially early on. I had a tutor constable called Simon Ashcroft. I think if you've been in the cops in the last 20 years at Preston, you'll know Simon, unfortunately, sadly died of a brain aneurysm a few years ago. It's pivotal people like that, again, who shape your career. And it's leadership from pivotal PCs, again, which I'm a big fan of. And after a couple of years, I thought, right, what's next? I remember one day, and I can't remember who these officers were, but I just remember the ARV walking in. And not only did they look the part, they knew the targets, they knew the areas, they knew who was wanted on warrant, who was coming out on bail, they knew the patch. And I thought to myself, right, that's the next step there. I'd never seen a gun in my life, a real one, until I went on my assessment week. By some fluke, if I could shoot straight, having never picked up a gun before. And I became a firearms trainer later in life, but every firearms trainer who watched me shoot would say I had the wrong stance, I had the wrong grip, I had the wrong everything. Everything I did would suggest that I would either put the round in the roof or the floor, but it just seemed to go where I pointed pointed the weapon in it. But yeah, and that's really set off my entire firearms career, really, from 2.5 years in, right the way through to me leaving from AFO, firearms officer, through to sergeant, AFO, operational firearms commander, trainer, FIM, which is the initial tactical firearms commander, and more recently the tactical firearms command, which if you said to me that's the career I would have had, I would have said, not a chance.
Well, it's unusual, isn't it? Because my limited experience of firearms is that a lot of people that have gone on to firearms tend, not always, but probably got some sort of military background. And so they're kind of naturally drawn to that world. I mean,
and you're right about the military side of it. There is an appeal. There has been an appeal. But having been a trainer for a short time, some of the best people I've trained have been the blank canvases.
Right.
The people who, like me, and I'm maybe gravitated towards these type of people, maybe, who had never seen a real gun, and you could say to them, I'm going to teach you the principles of shooting. Don't get me wrong, there's an opinion to voice. Firearms officers will voice it for you, but it's like any specialism. CID, sport unit,
no, you can't be a
dogs.
traffic officer for an opinion.
No, exactly. Yeah. What do you think of this new policy by the SMT traffic officer?
It's nothing to do with me, but I've got an opinion on it.
I remember from being on the ARV, I thought to myself, the force incident manager's role, that's the next level, that's the next test, and that's what my problem-solving brain would like. And it's horses for courses, isn't it? And again, it's a role that never really got any traction amongst people, and from inspector ranks where people would actively apply to do, and it was always seen as a hard role to recruit into.
So what is the role of a force incident manager?
Force incident manager is effectively, other forces call it the force duty officer, or Oscar 1, I think. Effectively, it's your control room inspector who will deal with or command high-risk incidents. So it's your firearms, it's your edge weapon jobs, it's your pursuit, major incidents. There's a tanker fallen over on the M6 and it's leaking some green liquid. Then what we're going to do, it's basically anything and everything that has a bit of risk to it. And I thought to myself, if I'm able to retire as a FIM, as an inspector, that would be job done for me.
Yeah.
That's happy. I'm content with the career path at that point.
Is there a job you can think of without divulging any secrets, I suppose?
There was a murder. It was the murder of John Joe Highton, which was a few years ago. It was a horrendous murder of a young man in Preston where some edge weapons had been used against him. There was a vehicle outstanding for it. We were looking for this vehicle, and CID was like, we need this car, find him. Everyone go out and find this car. Anyway, this car pops up, doesn't it, when I'm on shift? You know yourself, there's lots of rules around pursuing vehicles. Yes. You have to have the right skill set, you have to be in the right vehicle, you have to give your dynamic risk assessments, you have to give the reason for stop, and quite rightly, a lot of process around why we pursue vehicles and why we chase vehicles, why we don't when the risk is too high, is it proportionate? My old team will roll their eyes because this is what I used to bang on about all the time. Lo and behold, we got the sport unit behind this car in the wrong vehicle. None of them were skill set trained, and it had gone round the other way. So they're trying to turn around this Mercedes Sprinter, and then it was the dog handler got behind it. And at this time, I had Damien Kitchen sat next to me in the FIM's office, who was our chief inspector, cadre, and ex-FIM as well, should I say. And he sat next to me, like some of the TFCs used to do, come and have a brew and chew the fat with you. And so it was like, we're behind that car now. And I remember, and it's one of those moments you'll remember. And I've got, because your FIM head kicks in, and it's like, right, okay, very transactional type of thing. Right, what's your skill set? I need your risk assessment. Skill set? I've got none, boss. And at that time, policy says, can't pursue it. But I know, we start pursuing this car. They know that we know about this car. It gets away. It gets burnt out. We lose the evidence. We lose the people on board. And it's near Cemetery Island at Newall Lane at Preston. It's going down the hill towards Brockles Brown. And there's suitably qualified people making ground to try and catch up, but they're a bit far away. So it's going round the estates just off Newall Lane. It's left, it's right. It's going down here, it's going down there. And Damien Kitchen says, it's going down a dead end. And he's chatting to me, and I'm like, my bucket's full at this point, and I'm listening to this job. I've got the headset on, you can imagine it, can't you? And he said this afterwards, he said, flicked him a glance, which said, would you mind please shutting up, sir? Type of thing, in shortened sentence than that. And I think because, one, he knew what the role of the film was, and again, it's trusting your staff, and he trusted his staff. He got up and he walked over towards the press and dispatch side of the room, just to kind of offer them some support, and he thought, right, that's all I needed to know. I got the look off Steve, and I'm off. If there's somebody you wanted sat next to you at that time, Damien Kitchen was one of the 4 or 5 people that you probably want from a TFC world sat next to you who wouldn't be shouting in your ear to abandon it. So anyway, the car ends up on the All Lane. It's flying down the hill. And it goes wrong side down Brockhall's Brow. An AD who hasn't got the right skill set, and he's in a dog van with a dog bouncing around the back of it, and this offending vehicle goes high risk. Contra, wrong side, down Brockhall's Brow. Unbeknown to me at the time, and I got told later, there was high-ranking CID officers all sat around a radio in a CID office somewhere. You can imagine the PR sat in the middle of the room, screaming at this radio, "Do not abandon," willing me on with this. And again, it's what sort of level of risk are we willing to allow in the pursuit of catching bad guys? Now, this wasn't a couple of shoplifters. These were 2 people who were wanted for murder, and also the forensic matter that was potentially on that car and the car itself. So it's flying down this hill, and I'm thinking, getting close to abandoning this. I really don't want to abandon this, but there's a risk here to the public, and if this goes head-on with somebody, I could never justify putting someone's life at risk. So I said to AD, "This pursuit cannot continue anymore. I need this vehicle disabled, tactical contact authorised." And it was the first time I'd ever authorised tactical contact. So I was asking an officer not trained in the tactic to basically tactical contact. And I knew what AD knew what that meant. It was crash into that car and disable it. And you know what it's like when the air goes silent for 5, 6, 10 seconds. This car's flying down the hill. And I pictured this because I worked Preston for quite a number of years. And about 5, 6 seconds later, comes up, AD's voice comes on the radio and go, "Vehicle stopped, 2 arrested." And the moments in policing that make all those years worthwhile, summed up in a moment, it was that moment. Yeah. And the reasons why I don't care how bitter and twisted and long in the tooth and all sweat that you become, that moment when you said, "I want to be a police officer. Why do you want to be a police officer?" Everything just squeezes into that moment in time, and that was it. And you talk about high fives in the room. That was a high five moment in the room. And then it was a matter of, right, okay, how is everybody? Have we hurt anybody? Can we have a roll call? Everyone okay? Yeah. Don't get me wrong. When the tactic was applied, there was tactical contact applied, there was traffic officers who had made there, because traffic officers have a good skill of covering about 3.5 miles in 30 seconds, don't they? If they need to be somewhere...
I can't comment on that.
No, of course not. If they needed to be somewhere and you thought they're a little bit too far away, they're not. They were part of the tactic, and the people were arrested, and there was a lot of forensics, and people got convicted of murder. My point in saying why that was a good job, what I was really, really pleased about was not the fact that it was me in the command chair, etc. It was the fact of my immediate boss at the time was sat next to me, left me alone, trusting me to do the job because they had done the job before me. And the people on the ground I was asking to do very risky, very serious things that I knew they weren't trained for, if you will, the greater good, and that were there to catch bad guys at the end of the day. They trusted my decision making. And that's, I think, what it's all about. And if you have that, I think you can't go too far wrong.
But as a force incident manager, you will know policy inside out, because you have to. But it's what you came back to earlier, in that decision making and doing the right thing isn't always necessarily in line with policy. And the example that you've given, there's a conflict there, isn't there, between policy, what you should be doing, and then doing the right thing.
There's 2 questions that I always taught people, should I say, whether that be in the classroom or when we're teaching new FIMs. And it's about the centre bubble of the NDM, which is basically the whole thing that glues the NDM decision-making tool together. There's the 10 ACPO risk principles. It's a very wordy document which basically says we make some really tough decisions in very uncertain times without full information, but very, very little, and you've got to take an educated judgment view on a situation. It's a very subjective view sometimes from your own experience. If you think that you're 80%, 85% there, the job will back you. And I think if officers read the ACPO risk principles more, they would appreciate that, actually, I don't actually have to know. If I can discover more right now, yes, you should discover it. I'm not saying be lazy in your information gathering or intelligence gathering. But if you're not getting anything more, we need to make a decision. We need to protect the public. Make a decision. And as an AFO sat in an ARV, a lot of the time, the frustration with the bosses at the time would be...
Good to go, boss, let's do it.
Make a decision, boss, we'll make it work. You can boil that down to 2 questions. What does the public expect of me right now? What does the Chief Constable expect of me right now? And those are the 2 questions that should always have been in the back of your mind. And that's what I always have taught new FIMs. And I always used to have an old-fashioned saying of that is, if I gave these circumstances to my mate's mum, what would they want us to do? And would that be in tally with the Chief Constable's view on what we should do?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you discard policy. I'm not saying you go fast and loose with it. But policy's there to help and guide and instruct. But it can't cover every single situation. And sometimes we need to be brave, or the public wants us to be brave and make some decisions and saying, actually, I'm going to step outside of policy. I use an old court phrase, gripping the rail, me in the box explaining why. But yeah, I think I convinced 12 good men and women the reasons why I made that decision.
Well, clearly, as you mentioned earlier, it's you have an analytical mind, and it comes as some surprise to me that you're also an actor, because that is a completely different skill set.
Oh, it's a strange one, really. And again, it's pivotal people in your career, this can be positively and negatively, who make you realise that, you know what I mean, I am who I am. And you mentioned it before, and ARV, macho element, although I didn't really see it, but I get your point. You can imagine me strolling into the ARV office with Sport Unit and Dogs one day going, yeah, I'm a big fan of Shakespeare, I'm going to go and see King Lear this weekend and stuff like that.
Do what?
What? We talk about some cars, please. What engine's in your BMW? But it goes back to when I was at BNFL, and in downtime, you know, between jobs and stuff, I would do a lot of reading, and I just picked up on Shakespeare, and I read a lot of Shakespeare. And it was always interested in me. And again, it's a matter of, you know what, I'd love to do a bit of Shakespeare. And I loved Henry V, the play. It's got some well-known speeches in it for those that don't know. It's the Bandon Brothers, We Few, We Happy Few, We St. Crispin's Day speech. And it's also the Harfleur, Once More Into the Breach, Dear Friend. And I loved it. And there was one character on it called Montjoy, who's like the messenger between the English and the French. And the French are derisory of the English before the battle, because the English are massively outnumbered. The Battle of Agincourt. Yes. Montjoy's the messenger between the two, and he has a bit of an appreciation and a bit of respect for the English more than the other French do. It's a great character, and it was a very minor part in the play. There were some open auditions for Henry V in London, and I'm not saying it's the Globe or the RSC or a small theatre that held 100 and odd people, and it was 3 performances, and they were auditioning for Henry V. I thought to myself, well, why not? I think I was getting to that point where I'm thinking, why am I making such a big deal of hiding this in a way? It's all in your own head, isn't it? If I don't go for it, I'll kick myself. If I go for it and I don't get it, well, that's fine. That's not an issue. I can see that. So I went for this role as Montjoy, and there's a big scene towards the end of the St. Crispin's Day speech where Montjoy comes in and basically says, well, this is your last chance, really, because we're going to overwhelm you, and you're going to... So I go down and I read for it, and you know when you sat there and you're in a group of people and it's like, next, don't ring us, we'll ring you, all that kind of thing. But you're looking around amongst these people, and I'm thinking, these are proper actors here, and what have I done? You can clearly see these are actors who have been professionally trained. So I go and do this Montjoy scene with the guy who I think has been cast as Henry V. The guy who's playing Henry V is saying, I've got a tube to catch, I'm getting late in the day. They say does anyone know the Henry V side of the speech? And I go, well, I know it, but I don't know what you kind of expect. So we do it, and I'm doing the speech with them, and then you do it 5 or 6 times, and you're putting a bit more flamboyance into it, and you're playing around with it a little bit. Anyway, I go home. I then get a phone call that says, thanks for coming down and auditioning. We've given the role of Montjoy to someone else. I go, all right, great. Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate it. We'd like to offer you the role of Henry V. And I was like, and I stood there and I'm thinking, is this one of my mates winding me up? But no one knew. Parents didn't know. None of my friends knew. This was for me. We ended up rehearsing over the summer, and we did it. And one of the few times I've actually felt quite a bit of nerves was on that opening night. It's a small place, but it's a big deal for me. And we did that over 3 nights, and absolutely loved it. And it was at that point I thought, this is me. This is what I want to do, and this is where I want to go. And I had a little featured role on Hollyoaks where I was just in shock because people were talking about me in a bar. And you can't really hide the fact that you're on telly sometimes.
I bet there was a few of your colleagues sat there and got, bloody hell, that's Steve. What's he doing on telly?
He looks like Steve, but he looks a little bit older and a little bit fatter. You can't really hide it. And it was not that I was hiding it, but I was not the sort of, and guess what I've done this week? And it just kind of grew from there. And when that Hollyoaks first aired, my phone just lit up because I didn't realise that many people in the cops watched Hollyoaks, to be fair.
It's a bit sad, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but a lot of people in...
It's like that. I'm forced to watch the soaps because my wife watches
Yes,
them,
of course. So it was just and you know what? And I made such a big deal of it in my own head about, I used to work on the ARV, and I know a lot of friends who are in support unit and other specialist roles, and who've been in the job with 20 years with, who would have a bit of banter with me over the phone, which was great, which was fabulous. But the love I got from people who thought it was so interesting and wanted to talk to me about it was great, and it's not what you expect. And it's the fact, well, why didn't I do this sooner? Why was this such a big deal? There was little roles that I had. I had I played a rapist's boss in Emmerdale. I knocked over one of the characters in Coronation Street, and I got on Spotlight with a bit of theatre work as well. And I don't know if you know, Spotlight's a bit like what people equate Equity to. You've got to be a member of Spotlight to get the better job, should I say, through castings. But you can only have one person with one name on Spotlight, and there was already a Steve Bradshaw. So you can have, Steve Bradshaw the same as Stephen Bradshaw, Steve Bradshaw. I even tried different variations of my name. And I remember Tim Woodford, who runs the Lancashire Police World War I Memorial, messaging me one day and saying, were you aware of this guy who used to have your collar number, who died in the First World War, called Noah Burd? And obviously not content with leaving it there, I had to do some research on him and find out, full detail. I had some photographs of him, found out which battles he fought in and, where he died. His body was never found, and he's remembered on the Plug Street Memorial in Belgium. And I thought to myself, there's a name here which connect me and the collar number, because it was PC 677 Noah Burd. And I thought to myself, and it just seemed right.
It's a great name.
Bird, B-U-R-D, so it gives you the opportunity to connect somebody and being quite unique. And it's a great story for Graham Norton, as people always tell me. So the acting name Noah Burd came from that. So in some circles, I'm known as Noah Burd, and a job that I'm doing currently at the moment, where I'm playing a detective superintendent.
There must be a certain irony there that a former police officer is now playing a police officer.
I've played police officers or been cast as police officers where they didn't know I was a police officer, which is weird. And there's a funny story. I was very lucky to get a role in Stay Close, that Netflix drama that came out. And again, that was one of those where, I've just seen you on the TV. I can't believe you're in my living room again. We filmed it on a beach on the Wirral because there was a safe house and one of the lead characters was being threatened by another character. And I just wander in and, oh, hello, and the old hands inside the body armour, intense staring, and we were obviously filming that, and we had to walk back to the car park. So I'm walking along the shore playing this Livingston police constable, and I'm obviously still in the job at the time. And this couple stop me and go, Are you really a police officer?
Oh, this is a quandary here.
Yeah, so I was thinking, when you take a couple of seconds to think, well, how do I explain this? So I said, yes, I am, but I'm playing a police officer in this role. Oh, right, okay. Oh, can you tell me where yacht club was? There was a yacht club nearby. So I said, I think it's up there. Oh, thanks, officer. I just remember that the look on their face when I was trying to explain that, yes, I am a police officer, but I'm not who I am. And when you get the blurring of the lines and things like that. It's a great place to be, and there's some very hard-working people. And I've been given so many breaks from some very, very good people. Some really good actors who are household names, who have been very supportive and very, very giving with their time.
It's probably because they were there once as well, isn't it? There's a lot of that, I think.
Yeah, there must be. And the fact of, I think, generally actors are quite giving people. And I got a cast role on The Bay, and again, it was playing a cop where I come in and just give some lads hanging around a shop some hassle. I was cast member 44. I had one scene where I come in and I say a couple of lines. There was little bits on that where it's a blurring between the young me on foot patrol and me doing some acting. Because when I watched it back, I didn't actually realise the look I gave the lads when I fired them off from outside the shop. Yeah, and there was a little shake of the head at the end of this scene where I thought, I don't remember doing that. That wasn't in the direction. But that's obviously me kicking in. And the point I make there is, the main cast of that, the household names, the people who have been part of this team for years, they would be so supportive and so helpful, and they check in with you, and it's a real family feel, and that comes right from the top. Getting handwritten note from the executive producer to say thanks for being involved and things like this, and this, it's leadership. And again, you look at certain parts of leadership, and I don't care what job you're in, whether it's in you being the executive producer or the writer, Derek Harville, again, who was absolutely amazing with his support to me when I was getting that role. And that's the journey ahead for me, see where the acting goes. But in the meantime, I've also started a police advice to TV and film business called TV Cops, which I'm hoping to get off the ground, which I've already had some interest in. I've already worked on a Disney production. The people are wanting police advice to make it look as real as possible. But having been on set, I understand that they've got a job to do. They've got to make a drama. They've got to make it interesting.
And with that comes stereotypes, and it winds me up when I see certain soaps or some really good cop programmes that clearly have had a police input, and you think that is quite accurate. But there is others that the cocky cop with the attitude, and and you think we're not like that.
What I say to people is, you've got to make the drama. Because I say, if you want it to be 100% real, just show a cop on the hold to CPS for half an hour. There you go. There's half an hour.
A&E with a
136
patient
with a bed watch. And so you've got to make it interesting. But there's little tweaks you can do to just say, right, no, actually, the sergeant of this firearms team, you might think would be the first person through the door, but they're not. Let's move you. Let's put you at the back. Let's put you at the front. Let's put this. And it's just making it look a little bit real.
Have you ever thought about writing a script?
Yes, and I have the bare bones of one, I'm going to say in my head, but I've recently put parts of it on paper. Just put an outline and a direction for it and stuff. But, this is a big pool, and there's some big fish in this pool. And I look at other people's writing, a bit like, Derek Harville. These are pros.
Some of the plots that they write.
Write what you know, and I think there was a lot of appetite for things like that. So I'm trying to. There's a story which is being fleshed out. I don't want to give any plot lines away, but it involves a TFC of a local shire force, a visit from a senior politician whose partner works within that team. And, oh my goodness, something quite bad happens to that senior politician.
Oh dear.
And the things and the missing child gets involved, and there's all sorts of. It's a bad day at the office.
Is it all going to be wrapped up by 5 p.m. now?
Yeah, night shift come on, yeah. So, it's 6 42-minute episodes, that should wrap it up. And again, I think that's more to help me, give me an outlet to write, because I like to read. So I like to write a little bit as well, and keeps your brain ticking over. So I'm not saying that, this is going to get picked up, but I'd love to see whether I can get this story out onto a piece of paper and see. And I'm not suggesting it will compete with, some really big hitters who get some really good programmes commissioned. That's not really my objective. It'd be great if somebody liked it, but it's just to see whether I can get that on a piece of paper.
Well, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. Everybody look out for the name of Noah Burd.
B-U-R-D.
B-U-R-D. You're also doing a podcast, The Thin Blue Line, which would be described by somebody as 3 grumpy old men discussing policing topics, but I don't think we're grumpy at all. I've certainly no regrets, and I know you have.
No, not at all.
I think that's a project that we're really looking forward to. So
I think older men.
Of a certain age.
Seasoned older men, shall we say.
Steve, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.